Today's guest is Gautam, who is the Managing Director, Managing Partner and Co-Founder of True North Search, the premier entrepreneurship through acquisition accelerator in Northern Europe. He has a long background in facilitating M&A transactions and operational improvements for private equity, portfolio companies, Fortune 500 firms, and SMEs. In addition to his work at True North Search, he is a professor of practice at Aalto University in Finland, where he also teaches master's and MBA level courses in operational management. And we will be discussing entrepreneurship through acquisition. I am Tony Wood from CEO Collaborative Forum, and that's here, CEO Reflects. Gautam, a very warm welcome.
Thank you, Tony. It's a pleasure to be here.
And now I know that we saw each other in Helsinki almost over a month ago. And so we talked about what you were doing, this entrepreneurship through acquisition. And it's a really interesting model. And I wanted to invite you on here just to let people know how it works, because it's been incredibly successful for you. How does it work?
Sure. Yeah, happy to tell you a little bit about the model. So entrepreneurship through acquisition, or ETA for short, it's an alternative form of entrepreneurship. It's basically for individuals who might not have a unicorn idea, but they do have the desire to still become an entrepreneur. This model was first developed by a gentleman named Irv Grousbeck in 1984 during his time teaching MBAs at both Harvard and Stanford business schools. And basically the way the model works is an aspiring entrepreneur searches for, acquires, operates, and grows an established small, medium enterprise. The capital for the acquisition is provided by third-party investors, while the entrepreneur operator transitions to the CEO role and retains a significant equity share in the business. And it essentially encompasses four main steps. The first step is really around the catalyzation and mobilization of the search effort. And here the entrepreneur formulates his or her own search strategy. They identify potential industries and geographies of interest. They set up their specific investment criteria to screen acquisition opportunities. They have a detailed timeline with expected completion of specific activities. They put together a high-level financial model showing potential investment returns. They also do the legal entity and administration setup.
Okay.
And typically the deliverable at that stage is a private placement memorandum, or PPM for short, that would be sent out to potential search fund investors who would buy units of the search to essentially fund the runway for the search, because it typically takes anywhere between 18 to 36 months to actually find a good business. The next stage is really the search and acquire phase. And here the entrepreneur will screen potential targets against his or her own investment criteria. They'll meet with sellers. They'll conduct due diligence. They'll arrange the financing and negotiate the purchase price. And this will eventually lead to acquiring the target. And that will take typically anywhere between, let's say, 12 to 36 months, depending on the efficiency of the search process.
Oh my goodness. So basically, someone will come connect with you. They'll figure out, I really want to do X, Y, or Z. And then you'll help them, or the idea is that they then get help to find the business that they want to buy or to run. And then they go out and you help them find it. That sounds really cool, because a lot of people say, oh, you should go and find a business, but I don't have an idea or I don't know people. Is that the target market for it?
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, not all of us have the desire to start a business from scratch. It is very difficult. It's risky. So this offers really an alternative career trajectory for folks that want to pursue entrepreneurship but don't want to take, let's say, the risk. And one thing about the ETA model is, if you look at a horse racing analogy, right, there's three principles. There's the jockey, which is the entrepreneur. right? And he or she will basically go through this process, which they'll search for, acquire, and then operate and grow, and potentially exit a business if they choose. Then there's the horse, which is the actual target. And these are, let's say, lower middle market, small, medium enterprises. So 2 to 25 million in enterprise value. And these are, let's say, profitable businesses. They have a good free cash flow, track record of positive profitability. So we don't do distressed asset investing or turnarounds. These are healthy businesses. And the beautiful thing is that they already have a customer base, right? They already have a business model, because if you look at startups, they're actually searching for a business model. Whereas these companies, they can be 20, 30, some cases 40 years old. They have an established business model, and the founder or operator may be retiring, could be a second generation business as well. And they're kind of looking for somebody to be a steward for their legacy moving forward.
That's really interesting. So is this how this differs from traditional venture capital and angel investing, where the business wants to find someone but wants to do it in a different way, and they've had to rely on just luck up until now, right?
Yes, pretty much. It's quite different from the traditional venture early stage process, where you come up with an idea, you build a prototype, you launch a product, you commercialize and scale it. This is inherently risky, as you know. There's a high probability of failure. I think the old adage was 9 out of 10 startups fail. I would say that's even higher than that. And really, if you're investing in that asset class, the majority of investors will lose their capital. So that game of venture capital, you're betting on one unicorn out of, let's say, many failures. Alternatively, with the ETA, or entrepreneurship through acquisition model, and I'm going to throw some statistics at you just to kind of, put some color into it. 67% of searchers will successfully acquire a business. Okay. Nice. And okay. Out of that, approximately 89% will realize net gains for their investors, while only 11% will result in a loss. So there is inherently a margin of safety of investing in this alternative asset class versus, for example, angel investing or venture capital.
So that's interesting. You talk about the investors. So people who are investing in the CEO and also in this company, what can they expect from returns from this? I mean, why would they do this as opposed to other standard environments? I suppose that's two questions there.
Yeah. So, I mean, based on the research from Stanford University, since 1996, traditional search fund ETA investments have yielded slightly above 33% IRR, internal rate of return, and 5.2x multiple on invested capital. So if you look, for example, at the angel or venture capital, or even traditional private equity buyout firms, it's almost 2x. I think angel and startup venture capital, traditional ones, it's around 18%. Private equity, traditional buyout funds, it's around 14%. So, it's a gem or a diamond that not many investors know about. It is gaining in popularity, especially in the U.S. But in Europe, it's not so well known. It's starting to gain some traction, but the returns are really great. And if you look at financial theory, risk and reward, they're kind of inversely correlated. Whereas in this model, there is a margin of safety, right? But the actual returns are actually really attractive. So in that sense, it kind of goes against conventional wisdom in the financial world.
It's a really smart idea. So I mean, when you came up with this idea, True North Search, how do you add value to the entrepreneur or to the business in this process?
Sure. So maybe firstly, we didn't come up with this model. What we've essentially
Oh, you're a
done.
smart man. Come on.
We're not that creative, Tony,
We
but
won't tell anyone.
essentially what we've done is we've taken this model that's been around for, since the mid 80s, right? And we've taken it and we've implemented it in a new geography, which is Northern Europe. We're based out of the Nordics, based out of Helsinki, Finland, as you know.
Beautiful.
But we're currently into multiple countries in the Nordics, so Finland, Denmark, Norway, Estonia, as well as the UK. And we also entered the Benelux, so Belgium and Netherlands. We have searchers there. And what we do is we very much are intimately engaged with these searchers, right? So we work throughout the whole deal life cycle, or whole ETA life cycle. So this is from actually catalyzing and mobilizing the search to the actual search stage, where they'll actually screen potential targets, anywhere between 300 to 1,000 potential targets. We have a centralized customer relationship management. We have proprietary financial and operational modeling tools, and we act as a sparring partner throughout. And we have a community, right, similar to CEOCF, where we have a community where searchers who do this, we've heard from multiple searchers around the world saying that this is a very lonely endeavor if you do it by yourself. And so we offer kind of a mechanism and support where, if, for example, a deal does not go through, this can be an emotional roller coaster, right? So you're working very hard for 3 to 6 months, and the deal doesn't go through. We offer a community that kind of helps pick up the searcher and say, hey, dust yourself off, get back on the horse. And we leverage the collective intelligence of our peers as well as the cohorts. So typically we'll run 1 to 2 cohorts per year, and there'll be some very smart, intelligent people that are also undergoing and engaging in this process, because this is a long game, right? Yeah. So as mentioned, it's 12 to 36 months for the search. And then when you operate and grow, and this is when you actually transition from the searcher into the CEO role, that's anywhere between a 5 to 7 year period where you're actually creating value through the operations improvement, the revenue growth initiatives, also during the multiple expansion. So if you're actually buying at a multiple of, let's say, 4 or 5 times EBITDA, at the end of that period of, let's say, 7 years, you want to sell, let's say, for 6 to 7, right? So you get that multiple expansion possibility. And so what we do is we are really engaged with the searcher, then the CEO, throughout that life cycle. And typically what we do is we may have a governance perspective as a member of their board of directors to help them along post-acquisition. So there are a lot of things that we add value in. And I would say the last thing that we do is that we are operators at heart. So we have a rich operational heritage. So myself, I come from an operations background, as you know.
Man after my own heart.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've gone down this path myself as an acquisition entrepreneur. So it is a very simple process, but it is not easy. So, knowing what it entails, providing and disseminating knowledge and insights, so these folks don't make the same mistakes I have or previous searchers have.
I mean, I must admit, having talked to you for now over, for a period of time, you do have that body of knowledge and that great experience to actually help people. And I think, for people who are thinking about, should I do it or shouldn't I do it? Even if you're seasoned, it's nice to have that support and that experience around you. So, because we haven't all had all experiences and all the issues. So you're able to really help them move forward. And so if someone were thinking about saying, after listening to this podcast, And I went, Gautam, my goodness, this is exactly what I want. What advice would you give them to kind of start this journey? You know, because you said that, you know, they start off as a searcher and they need to build their plan of what they want, but maybe they're operationally mindseted, or maybe they do have an idea and they just want to take another business and then grow it to that next level. What advice, what would they do in the next 24 hours to make this dream a reality, Gautam?
Yeah, I would say that it requires very deep introspection and reflection.
Okay.
So we often ask this when we interview and we vet potential candidates that want to get into our program. Um, the way the model works in Europe is different than, for example, in the US, because the US, they'll take a hotshot MBA who may be, let's say, early 30s to mid 30s. In Europe, we're slightly more conservative. So typically what
Okay.
we look for is somebody, you know, with an MBA, with at least 10 years of experience, because, you know, sellers of these SMEs, you know, they look for, let's say, a little bit of age and a little bit of experience under their belt.
Okay.
But even then, to your question, I would say it requires a lot of reflection. Is this something that they really want to get into? Because this is the long game.
Okay.
You'll be spending anywhere between, let's say, 7 to 10 years of your life.
Mhm.
So this
Yeah.
is a career trajectory. And typically what we see is that folks that have been, let's say, either in investment banking or private equity or management consultancy, they'll say, "Hey, this is great because, you know, this is what I'm looking for, and I just don't know how to kind of go because I've never done a deal before, right? Or because everybody has blind spots, right? So,
Yes.
you know, working with these folks to understand what their strengths, weaknesses are, because everybody that goes into this is pretty smart.
Yeah.
They're actually brilliant, but then they may have a blind spot or they may have a weakness, for example, with people. Right. For example, they may be socially awkward or they don't have the necessary gravitas or executive presence
Yeah.
to kind of go into that leadership role. So, for example, at CEO CF, you're dealing with CEOs. So, you know, do people have that ability to transition from a corporate job, blue chip company into, let's say, a lower middle market
Mm.
CEO role? That's kind of a big transition because you're not going to have that army of people that is going to be backing you up. And you know
Yeah.
this, Tony, being an entrepreneur yourself, that you know you have to wear a lot of different
Yeah. I
hats.
do.
There may not be a middle management layer, so
Thank
it is
goodness.
fun. Yeah, it's fundamentally different. There could be obstacles. Not
Yeah.
saying that they can't grow into that role, but it is
Absolutely.
fundamentally different from, let's say,
But it,
going. Yeah,
yeah,
go
but
ahead.
it's your ability to take this business, and there's no reason why it couldn't fly. I mean, a lot of businesses, I know a lot of people want to flip things around in a year or two, but actually getting into a business, um, and staying in it for maybe, you know, 7, 9 years really enables you to know that space. It really
Yeah.
enables you to understand what you're doing. So I think that there's going to be a lot of people who are interested. The one thing that I'm really interested in right now is, you said there's this differential between the US and Europe,
Mhm.
where the US is more willing to see age as a benefit rather than being too young or too old as a problem. How could
Mhm.
we change in Europe, or to to address that, to give young entrepreneurs a chance of starting these? What could we do?
I think it's a function of, let's say, the traction of the model, right?
Right,
So it has been around since the mid 80s, as we discussed in the US. Was Simon Webster from the UK. He's
right.
a lecturer at London Business School. And that was in the, let's say, late 90s, if I'm not mistaken. So as the model starts to gain traction, we may see that age
Okay.
go down a bit.
Interesting.
And it's not only the sellers that we have to educate, because what we've done at True North Search is during the last 4 years of operation, we've really had to evangelize the model with investors,
Good
with
for you.
potential searchers. Yeah, and it was a lot of work that we had to do, because they're like, well, is this like a startup? Is this, no, it's not. I mean, and I think one of the beauties of this model is that you're starting with a good business,
Yeah.
right? So there's a track record of profitability. We usually look for businesses with recurring revenues.
Yeah.
So the revenue model is solid.
A business that makes money?
A
Really?
business that makes money,
Wow.
that's right.
They're out there?
That's right. And again, there's other factors, low customer concentration. So, no one customer is making up the majority of the revenue base. So there's a lot of, let's say, criteria that we look for within these business. So part of that is the screening process and part of the deal sourcing that we look at.
Good. Look, this is amazing. This sounds exactly perfect for what we need in Europe right now. More power to your boat. I just want everybody to know that there's an outlet there. If you're not the idea person, but you're an operation person, you can go and get an idea that's relatively safe because it makes money, and then you can maybe take that business and those employees to the next level and add your uniqueness. This sounds amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us and talk through it. It's been amazing. Thank you so much, Gautam.
It's my pleasure, Tony. It's always great to see you, and really love the community at CEOCF.
Take care, my friend.
Take care, Tony.